Before I begin today's video, I want to preface it by stating that if you came here expecting a heavy video, prepare to be disappointed. This is mainly just going to be me talking for a bit, so expect a lot of stock footage and the like, with the occasional evidence thrown in. So feel free to throw this on as background music if you need to, because yeah, this is just me talk. Because for a video like this, I feel like my priority should be on my points and not if the video looks pretty or not. And if you're turned off by that, I completely understand. Feel free to click off the video. Thank you for your time. For everyone else, I hope you understand and enjoy the video, or don't. It'll make for an interesting comment section regardless. And one other thing. I'm going to say this multiple times in the video. I am not anti-CC. This is just me talking as a member of the commentary community. Okay? Let's begin. This is a video that's been a long time coming for me, but before we begin, let me get this out of the way again. I am not anti-CC or want the community to go away. In fact, you can't really get rid of a community since there will always be fans of a particular thing wanting to contribute and discuss said things. All that will really happen is that the community will get a nasty reputation if bad shit happens in said community, which the people joining for the first time likely won't know about unless they look at past dramas, and or the community will shrink in terms of total members. Now that we got that clarified, let's begin this video with a question. Is the Slideshow Commentary Community going downhill? Personally, I think it is, but it has the potential to recover after the events of 2016/17 and early 2018. Sure, past years did have some bad moments in it. I mean, remember that time the Blockbuster critic went after the CC? But the last couple of years have had issues in it that didn't really need to get as explosive as it got in those 2 years. What are some examples of this, you might be asking? Well, let's start with the recent incidents, Avatargate and Image. I already made a video on this whole issue, which you can find up in the cards up top, so I will try and not spend too much time on this, but needless to say, a lot of members in the community were up in arms over the use of single or multiple images and commentaries, and with Avatargate responding to two attention whores who are actively trying to rile up the CC and in all honesty should have been ignored because they were trying really hard to get that attention, and they ultimately got that in the end because of the responses to them, including myself. Both situations share something in common if you couldn't tell. People overreacted to something that wasn't a big deal in the grand scheme of things. With ImageGate, the person who was getting the critique of only using one image was not obligated to take said criticism if their preferred style was using a single image, but that doesn't mean the person making the critique is wrong because that can be seen as a valid complaint for people who don't enjoy one-image videos. Basically, there is an audience for both, and to basically fight with someone over them giving critique for using one or multiple images in a commentary is a bad idea because in the end it could potentially stifle feedback, which is a terrible idea for content creators since feedback is really important in order for someone to improve. We're not perfect after all. As for Avatargate, who gives a shit if you use an anime avatar or an OC? At the end of the day, it's just something for the person to look at. You might be able to see their taste and preference based on their avatars, but in terms of an impression of a person, I think that's about it in terms of just their avatar. I think I spent enough time on that subject, so let's just move on. As said earlier, both situations had the community overreacting when they really didn't need to, but Avatar/ImageGate aren't the only instances of this occurring. This is actually one of the bigger problems in the community right now. People overreacting to shit that really isn't a big deal. Want another example? Okay. Remember the first time Darkseid appeared in the community and made that trailer hinting at a video on the CC? Remember when people flipped the fuck out over that? Over what exactly? A guy wanted to call out the community when it wasn't even made yet? Come on guys, you're supposed to be better than that. Hell, it kinda says something when one of the big name members, in this case Ryan, has to come out and make a public statement saying that you guys are overreacting. Which said video is now deleted. Joyous. But even Ryan was prone to overreacting in the last year or so, as shown with the whole African-American oppression situation where some members of the CC got into an argument over whether or not African-Americans, since I don't want to be called a racist if I say black people, were oppressed in the United States. I'm not going to spend too much time on this situation since I wasn't completely involved in it, and a lot of what went down has been wiped from YouTube, but needless to say, it was fucking stupid. And for those wondering my opinion on the whole, if African Americans are oppressed in the States or not, this is not the video for that. That is a topic for another day. I'm not going to present my opinion in this video, basically. Let's move on. Speaking of stupidity, remember when people flipped out over the old CC before it even came out or even detailed their plans? Because I do, and it was fucking stupid. And 2017 was no different, with people continually getting pissy at the alt and letting that situation get as big as it did. If anything, this overreaction seemed to make the alt stronger and more determined to keep going with their videos on the CC because they knew that the other side of the CC would get pissy about it. And keep in mind that the original reason for the alt-CC's creation was in response to the bad shit going on in the CC at the time. Had some of the big name and smaller name channels of the other side of the CC not reacted the way that they did, the alt wouldn't likely be as big as it is now. In other words, some of these members, not all, because I'm aware of that possibility where some fuckers are going to take me out of context, were supplying their enemy the energy and food it needed to grow, whether they knew it or not. Speaking of letting issues get too big, remember when Medica had plans to cover the CC and a lot of its members flipped the fuck out? Yeah, 'cause I do. Over again, a fucking video. Yeah, that totally helps paint a positive picture of the CC when a lot of its big-name members get all defensive and angry over someone bigger than them, and not in their community, covering them in a video. When really, the worst that would happen, unless you did stuff really fucked up, is that you get called out by the guy and deal with a bunch of fucking comments, which for most CC members already happens anyways. Fucking hell. I know this has been stated before, but I find it funny that a lot of members of a community based around critiquing others seems to flip the fuck out when the same is done to them, especially when it's from a bigger channel. I know it sounds like I'm repeating myself, and I am, but this whole overreacting to things that aren't a big deal is still a big issue in the community. What makes this even worse is that as someone who used to be in the Total Pokemon community, this is shit I often saw from that community as well, but the difference was they were teenagers. Most of the people in this community pulling this shit are adults. There's no excuse for this behavior, guys. Especially when someone gets uppity at someone overusing they/them as gender pronouns for someone trans or not who identify as male or female. Oh, and just to get this out of the way, this is not referring to those who are genderqueer or prefer the use of XIR, Z, hi, co, etc. as their pronouns, okay? I'm referring to those who use he or her as pronouns / identify as male or female, okay? Just wanted to make that clear for anyone who wants to try and take me out of context. So yeah, I really didn't want to talk about this. But given how it ties into the whole age/overreacting bit, I feel like I should address it here. Listen, I will call you by your preferred pronouns if that is what you want. If Holly wants to be called a female, I will happily call Holly a female. If Donnie wants to be called male, I will happily use those pronouns, etc. My issue, however, is that people got pissy at commentator Mr. A for using a term associated with a person of unspecified gender. Again, this was over the use of they/them. So, by that very logic, if I used a sentence like, I think they referring to a person, should word themselves better, I'm misgendering that person, right? Or I'm being offensive? No. In fact, according to Oxford, the use of the word they was a result of the gender pronoun he being seen as sexist back in the day because it was applied to both sexes. Besides, you know what they/them is applied to aside from being used to describe a person in general? Agender individuals, aka those who don't identify as a gender. In other words, people got on his ass over a word that can't give a gender identity of male or female to begin with. In fact, let's play devil's advocate for a moment. What if those people use those pronouns because they don't know the person's fucking gender and don't want to misgender them by accident? I know, what a fancy fucking concept. Again, I agree that someone should call someone by their preferred pronoun, but this whole thing is over a word not associated with either gender? Really? I'm sorry, but no. That said, if the person knows the gender pronouns and still won't call them by their preferred pronouns, then I can kind of understand why you'd be annoyed at the person. But with a lot of these comments, I'm getting the impression that these people are fucking angry at the guy over a use of something neutral, and I'm sorry, but even as someone who used to have issues confronting their own gender identity growing up, I still can't side with these guys. I'm sorry, but I can't. I don't see the reasoning here. Again, I will call you by the pronouns that you want. That is not my problem. That's easy. My issue is that when people flip the fuck out over a word like they/them, which again is a neutral fucking term, it's yet another example of people overreacting to something small. This isn't giving a male or female pronoun, or vice versa. This isn't giving a gender pronoun to an agender person. None of that is happening here. And since this occurred on a social platform, I can use this example. This would be the equivalent of a guy in real life using they/them on the streets to describe a person, and then some random person nearby goes up to the two and starts shouting at the guy. Yeah, that doesn't paint a good picture of the shouting person now, does it? And this whole incident was over what exactly? Again, the use of a non-binary pronoun. Give me a fucking break, guys. Again, it didn't need to get that big, and I'm not just referring to the side that was getting on Mr. A's case. I'm referring to both sides. Both sides were better than this, and they handled the situation poorly when you look back on it. Alright, so while I wait for someone to potentially take me out of context, I might as well quickly address the rise of comms that focus on strictly quality issues and nothing else. You know, it's funny. When I watch commentary/responses, I expect commentary/responses, not diet cinemasins. Not saying you can't address those issues, but when you make it a majority of the comm, that's kind of a problem because you're not really debunking or responding to any of the points brought up. In fact, the only feedback you're giving someone is how to make the video more appealing, which is fine, but what if the content creator is just starting out? Then your advice is to basically polish a turd. Again, not saying you can't make critiques of the quality. Just be careful with how much you say it in the comm. One other thing I wish to address is an idea that kid Douglas presented in his second video on the CC. That when you criticize the CC, you are lambasted for it and are judged by the higher-ups in the community, while their fans will also look down on you because the higher-ups did so. In other words, he basically thought of it as a hive mind. But here's the thing. Last year showcased that if it was a hive mind, then they're doing a poor job of showing that the higher-ups are perfect because, yeah, the higher-ups have showcased through their public actions that they can be just as shitty as the people they criticize in their own community. Now, to be fair, an argument can be made that there may be a hierarchy problem and or a follow the leader issue in the community, but that's a topic for another time. For now, let's deal with the hive mind part, by starting at the top with Ryan. But before I do, I want to preface that I don't hate any of these guys. I like their content for the most part, even if I don't always agree. I'm just simply providing instances of their flawed moments last year and in 2016, and how they respond with this after the video goes up is their choice. Now then, ignoring the whole black oppression incident from last year, which he admitted that he fucked up on, he basically ran away from the CC for some time, around December/late November, when the iron from Medica's announcement was still hot. Admittedly though, that has more to do with correlation and likely not the actual reason, but it certainly didn't paint a better picture of him. On top of that, he's been recently avoiding the CC as of late, not even trying to apply any real solutions to recent issues, which sounds like a bad idea if you consider one of the big name members of the community. Now, to be fair, it's his choice if he doesn't want to do commentaries that much nowadays, and I'm not lambasting him for doing other things. All I am saying is that as one who is considered by many to be one of the higher-ups, he's not perfect, just like how I or anyone else in this community isn't perfect. Silver was another big name, and again, I don't hate the guy, I enjoy his content, but I also need to be fair, so here we go. When the Medica situation went down, he profited his content for a bit, though again, he admitted that was not the best in the follow-up tweet. There was the whole Ernie situation where he acted like an immature brat, which he also admitted he was wrong for doing so sometime after the fact. And I think that's about it for 2017's actions from Silver. Really, Silver is probably one of the few higher-ups that doesn't have a lot of bad shit happen to him in the CC in the last year or so, aside from the ones I mentioned, so that's good, I guess. Still though, if he does, don't be afraid to call him out. Can't all be right all the time, and getting knocked back to reality is good because it helps us prevent getting a big ego and all that. Doodletown's already has a bunch of drama behind her in the last 2 years, so I won't spend too much time on them since they're well documented, but I'm still going to bring it up to establish my overall point at the end of this whole thing. The jar drama, the Medica situation, the Medicines versus Logic situation, Doodletown's flipping the fuck out in early 2017. Basically, Doodletown's has gotten herself into a lot of problems over the last year, so that has been pointed out by many people, and I'm sure she's also aware of her mistakes. Alright, two left. Annabeth Roy and YouTube Dude's involvement in the whole oppression incident where they dismissed the stats of African Americans getting killed by police provided in Dylan's video in favor of cases where African Americans got shot by police. Which was really dumb, because it's basically dismissing evidence proving you wrong because it's not the evidence you want to see. Oh, by the way, if Dylan's stats are wrong, Waitress has proving that it's the opposite, or even proving that his source is wrong or incorrect. Oh, yeah, that's right. Nowhere. Because you decided to throw your 2 cents in a debate about a serious subject, without anything to back your shit up. Great job, you two. Then again, they had no clue who the fuck they were even talking about when it came to the people shot in Florida/Ferguson, so why did they think it was a smart idea to discuss this, especially during a fucking gaming live stream? Exactly. They were unprepared, and yet still thought it was a great idea to try and discuss a serious topic like that anyways, with no clue what the fuck they were talking about. So where am I going with all this? Simple. With all these instances, even if it's been over the last year or so, more and more people have been calling out these actions by the higher-ups. Which is good, because not even the higher-ups are perfect, and they should be called out on their actions so that they can learn from it. Even if it's from people not that big, or even the old CC sometimes, It's still good to see that people aren't afraid to point out these issues publicly. Hell, even the higher-ups are doing that. If this community was a hive mind, we wouldn't be seeing these skirmishes over the last year or so. They would likely be stamped out immediately, and odds are these instances will continue even when another incident occurs in the community in the future. So to those who are doing this, keep it up. You're doing a good thing for your community. Anyways, I think it's time I wrap this up. Like I said in the beginning, I think it is going downhill a bit due to a lot of these previously mentioned instances and repeated behaviors, but more and more people are taking action to stop this community from dying out, and hopefully these instances where people overreact to small issues will be handled better when it happens again. Because even if it's over something small, it still has the potential to pin a big black mark on the community when it continues to happen. I don't hate the Slideshow Commentary Community, and I want it to do well, but it can only get better through improvements, because if action isn't taken, then the community will continue to worsen. So take action, speak out when the higher-ups do something wrong, and try to handle yourselves better when it comes to these kind of situations previously mentioned above. That's what I plan on doing after this video goes live, and I hope you do the same if you haven't already. Until then, I'm Damon, and I will bid you adieu.